welcome to Planet Aid's first career day. And today what we're going to do is we're going to be talking with two and possibly three people who are doing some great and big things in sustainability. And we're going to start off talking to Marissa Michalkiewicz. And Marissa, before I talk to you, I just wanted to acknowledge that we did a Keep Me Posted with Planet Aid earlier. And, I came to find out about you through your TikTok account when you were working, when you were working in Appleton, Wisconsin with the name of it, 𝗬𝗏𝗀𝗃 County Recycling and Solid Waste Department. And I kept seeing these TikToks, saying that. And they were just like so funny and amusing. And, and I'm like looking at the likes and why are these likes so high for a recycling entity? So I love just your background in the fact that you have a sustainable career choice. And at the same time, you don't just limit yourself to just doing sustainable things. You say marketing as well. You do marketing as well. So both of those things, you have passion for both of those things and you integrate them. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing now, Marissa.
Sure. So, well, first and foremost, thanks for having me, talking with you today. My background is kind of interesting because when I was in school, I remember pretty vividly, I was a junior in high school when I made the determination to pursue both environmental science and business. Now, mind you, that was in the year 2011, which does not sound like that long ago. But in the realm of sustainability, that was a very bizarre thing for a student to say. And people would look at me really funny. They'd be like, well, what job are you going to have? And I'm like, it'll make sense one day. Like it'll work. So fast forward, I went to the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, and I majored in, ultimately, I have a Bachelor of Business Administration, which I call my practical degree. So I have two emphases, one in finance, one in management. And then I minored in environmental science and environmental policy and planning, which I call the fun stuff. So basically, I just wrapped sustainable business as my mantra. And ultimately, yes, it led me to 𝗬𝗏𝗀𝗃 County Recycling and Solid Waste. I've held a lot of very different jobs. Once I left college, I love to work, and ultimately every experience leads you to where you ultimately want to go. But yeah, marketing's always been a passion of mine. I love storytelling. Creativity is one thing I wish I could utilize every day of my life, which I try to. My whole goal with 𝗬𝗏𝗀𝗃 County was making recycling entertaining, because environmentalism, if you want people to pay attention, you ultimately have to make it catchy and engaging. So that's what I did while I was at the county, and TikTok was just a perfectly timed catching lightning in a bottle kind of moment. And it was really fun. And then I made a career change recently. I work for a company called Carnivore Meat Company now, where I am working in the raw and freeze-dried pet food industry, still marketing, but at the same time, I am still doing sustainable initiatives because I do own and run my own business. It's called Giveadaam Ventures. So we're just doing entrepreneurship. We're working full time, and ultimately, sustainability is always at the forefront of what I do.
So Giveadaam Ventures is a startup company in Green Bay, Wisconsin that intends to introduce energy efficient and affordable college housing around the UW Green Bay campus. So I was a student at UW Green Bay from 2012 to 2016, and when I first went to look for housing around the campus, since everyone kind of wants their first home away from home, but discovered really quickly that there is not much for student housing in the Green Bay area. So I started developing this idea like, oh, maybe I could introduce energy efficient housing because I am a huge sustainability nerd. So I wanted to tie that into the lack of housing in Green Bay. So from there, after graduation, it took a little bit, but decided to launch Giveadaam Ventures to hopefully introduce more housing for the students of UW Green Bay.
I also heard in a podcast that you actually came to really love environmentalism through a really great teacher. And I love the fact that the power of teachers can really turn your mind towards something that you may not have even grown up with. Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So yeah, I didn't come from a family of diehard tree huggers. So I honestly can't tell you where it came from. I was, I guess, just born with the desire to pursue environmentalism. But yeah, I had a teacher. I was a sophomore in high school, and he was one of the football coaches. He taught the environmental science classes, and he was so passionate about teaching environmentalism. Where he kind of made it cool when, again, it was 2010, which it doesn't sound that long ago, but a lot has changed in 10 years when it comes to sustainability. So yeah, for this little eco geek growing up, seeing him get so passionate about something made me in turn stay passionate. You know, it was like an invitation to continue pursuing that field and really falling deeper in love with it. So yeah, power to all the teachers. I can imagine, like, if maybe I wouldn't have had him as a teacher, I wouldn't have continued pursuing something that was so new at the time. So absolutely, you got to have those good teachers.
Wonderful. And that is also a career path that is, a lot of times people don't think about it as so important, but very important, especially we need those science teachers out there to inspire the new generation,
Absolutely.
bring forth, appreciation for things that we wouldn't, really necessarily think about unless they brought it to our attention. So Marissa, tell us a little bit about your new venture, as you call it. And I'm not going to curse. You're not going to make me curse, Marissa.
I know, how funny. So when I came up with the name of my business, for me, it's just being obvious. Like, all of us need to care a little deeper about the environment and sustainability and community around us. So when I came up with the name of my business, yeah, it's Giveadaam, like, because I think more dams need to be given. And my mom's like, change the name, do give a darn. I'm like, not the same, Mom, I'm sorry. But anyway, so I started my business to pursue affordable and energy efficient housing options to rent solely to young professionals and or college students in the Brown County area. So it's my glorified hobby, I guess, by default, because I do work full time and then I pursue that after work. So I've been working on that since September of 2017. We're almost done with the first property in Green Bay. So we're so close to having an occupancy permit, and then we'll have people living there and teaching about environmental construction. So
tell me about the property, though. Then you secured the lot for the property. Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I started working with the city of Green Bay in the spring of 2018. So it's been a long process, but basically just figuring out what kind of lot would be suitable for a redevelopment opportunity to introduce one of these more affordable and community engaged properties. So I worked with a general contractor who is renowned for energy efficient design in Wisconsin, which is not very common at all. Unfortunately, he passed away last December, so it's made it very complicated in the end. But ultimately, we're finally getting to the point of bringing this. It's technically a 2-family property, so 5 people will end up living there. It's just designed to be more energy efficient. And at the end of the day, I guess I'll just have to report back on it once it's all said and done. But yeah, it's in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
So what is the dream with this, with
Yeah. The dream one day, it's evolved a lot, especially since I started constructing it during the pandemic, which was very unfortunate timing. But once we regroup and rebound and see how this property fills out, my ultimate goal would be to continue introducing these properties in infill lots, not just starting from scratch, more incorporating it into existing communities, because that's also an element of sustainability that's not talked about as much. But the revitalization of existing infrastructure, breathing life into communities that may have been looked over for a little bit. So it's really just, I think that's more my goal moving forward, just to continue introducing these properties, just sliding them into communities and seeing what happens.
So some of the areas that you cover would be renewable energy, recycling, waste optimization, and community involvement. So I wanted to actually talk to you about what I think people probably wouldn't necessarily think is one of the big things, community involvement. I think community involvement is very important to what you're trying to do because you have to have buy-in. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, community involvement is that secret part of sustainability that gets overlooked sometimes. But while I was working on the designs of this property with our architecture firm, we spent a lot of time diving into the community and building those connections that ultimately the people who live at this property will get to experience. So we've worked with homeless shelters because, again, we're introducing new properties. It's always good to invest in the organizations that are working with those who don't have housing, period. We're working with local restaurants, bars, breweries, the fun aspect of, living in a community. And then at the same time, working with event venues, downtown city organizations. We've kind of sprinkled all over the city and worked to build those community connections because, yes, at the end of the day, when you're trying to do something new and you're doing things that are untraditional, it's always good to be out there talking about it with individuals and getting their buy-in so that at the end of the day, when you need to paint an entire property, you can call on who we call our Giveadaamers to come out and help with that mission, because the best way, in my opinion, to grow a community is to not only create your own community to be able to push that mission forward. So community is very important because at the end of the day, if something were to go wrong, it's nice to be able to call on a group of people to come help you out and kind of help push your mission forward too.
Wonderful. And Marissa, thank you so much for that. We have to acknowledge that on the line also is Christina Berry. And Christina, are you there?
I am.
Okay.
I'm here, actually trying to connect to my earpiece, but I'm here if you'll give me just a second.
Sure. So we'll come back to you in just a little bit, okay? So we're gonna move on to Sujata. And Sujata works for Dane County Department of Waste and Renewables. You're currently a sustainability engagement coordinator, but prior to that, you were a solid waste engineer. So I think it's really important for us to understand titles. So can you tell us a little bit about what both of those positions are? You can unmute yourself, Sujata.
Yeah, sure. And just wanted to thank you again for this opportunity to speak a little bit about my role in the work that I do. So when I started working for the Dane County Department of Waste and Renewables, I was actually a graduate student. So I was getting my master's in social innovation and sustainability leadership, which was a super cool program for 2 years. And during that time, there was an internship opportunity available at the Dane County Department of Waste and Renewables for solid waste interns. So that's kind of how I got my foot in the door for being in that solid waste engineering space. And my background is actually in civil and environmental engineering. And so I wanted to sort of take this engineering knowledge and base that I had learned in undergrad to the next level of how can we move beyond the status quo of what we're currently doing and into a more sustainable, regenerative future. And that's kind of where my master's came in. And so, yeah, it just lined up really well. I moved to Madison. I happened to interview the director of the department for my grad program project, and it kind of turned into oh, hey, you just moved here and you're looking for an opportunity to work. And we have this, sort of project and programs going on and could use extra help. And an interview ended up being a job offer to intern here. So that's kind of how I got into the solid waste position here. And then throughout my time working as an intern here, I ended up doing a lot of outreach and communication related work because we realized that there wasn't a lot being done in that area as a department, and we were doing a lot of great things, but we needed to be better at sharing those stories. And so a lot of my role here within the department sort of became that outreach and communication related work. And as I began doing that work, it became apparent that it was really beneficial to have somebody doing that work. And the department was able to create this sustainability engagement coordinator position full-time, so that it could be a position where we have someone completely sort of focused on outreach, education, and working on sustainability related projects.
Wonderful. Now, Sujata, I saw a quote from you that said that you are determined to be part of the generation that creates a paradigm shift toward regenerative and respectful material use in our society. That's a big statement. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, and this kind of goes into the story of how I ended up working in this business of trash. So as a little girl, I never could understand why people would just throw things away with like such disdain or disgust, like, we don't need it anymore, throw it in the trash. And I always thought, like, whoa, like this could be used for X, Y, or Z. And so I was that kid that would dig through the trash bin and the recycling bin, making like Barbie house dolls and rockets.
Fellow eco geek like Marissa calls herself.
Yes. Yeah, and I actually resonated a lot with your story, Marissa, because I too, was raised in a family where we weren't environmentalists. I just had a lot of questions and didn't understand why systems were the way they were. And in my lifetime wanted to challenge that and ask why. And so, this interest in kind of trash and where stuff goes sort of developed as I got older into, wow, I really want to work in this field, because I don't feel like as people of this earth, we were meant to just extract, consume, and throw. Indefinitely, it's not sustainable. And how can we create a more regenerative relationship, which means how can we have a relationship with our resources where both the resource is able to thrive, as well as communities that are using the resources are able to thrive, so that there's mutual thriving. And by existing, we're not harming the ability of each other to exist. And there's a lot of respect and awareness when it comes to that. What does it mean to properly use a material and know if you are using it in a way that is not harming the ability of the resource to replenish itself?
Well, I actually love the fact that when I came upon just talking to you, we were talking about something that we're very much involved with launching, called the Trash Lab.
Yes.
So the Trash Lab, just in you talking just then, just thinking about how it sounds like everything that you're talking about, you put into the Trash Lab.
Yes.
And it's just, tell us a little bit about it, because it's just a wonderful mobile exhibit. I would love to go to Wisconsin and be able
Please
to
come.
see it, because it's just a wonderful exhibit from inside and out. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. And yep, you're spot on. Sort of the narrative that I've been talking about is, how can we bring more mindfulness into the way that we are interacting and using resources is really the goal of the Trash Lab. We really wanted visitors to think about the relationship with stuff, and the journey of stuff, where it comes from, what we do with it, and where it goes. And so I was able to receive grant funding to build a mobile exhibit to kind of talk about that. And so we wanted to talk the talk and walk the walk. So I was able to track down an old trailer that somebody didn't want anymore, and we purchased it and we retrofitted it into becoming this Trash Lab. So inside, it's filled with exhibits that talk about what is trash, where does it go here in Dane County, what do we do with it, and what sort of future do we want to create together as a community when it comes to managing in our materials, in a way that creates again, more thriving for the resources and the communities that are using those materials. And so it was a very fun project because we partnered with the Madison Children's Museum here in town, which was also an unlikely partnership. And kind of like Marissa is saying, it's really fun and important to invite people in your community, maybe people you wouldn't even expect to, interact or collaborate with, because a lot of magic can come from those sorts of unique collaborations and partnerships. And I can certainly say that was true of the Trash Lab. It was such a blast to work with the Children's Museum. What better group to help us, take these complex science and engineering topics and dissect them into easy to understand graphics, images, and displays.
And what's been some of that feedback that you've been receiving from the Trash Lab? I know it's been so great, especially from children and parents, right?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I've had people tell me that they knew somebody who went to see it and they couldn't stop talking about it. And the Trash Lab has also inspired other school projects as well. So it's been really neat to see the sort of dialogue and projects that have spurred from that. And just in terms of recognition, the Trash Lab has been recognized locally, statewide, and even internationally most recently for the impact that it's having. Because it's really gotten conversations starting. A lot more people have engaged with us. They know about our work. People are asking to be involved. And it's just really cool that the Trash Lab has given us a way to start an important conversation in a really fun, through a fun, whimsical exhibit. And we have this ceiling of the Trash Lab lined with objects that were pulled out from our waste stream. And to show people, it's often a lot of people's favorite part, and to show people like these are all just resources in the wrong places, just setting aside time to reflect and provide space for people to do so with the Trash Lab has just been really, really great, for making.
Go ahead and brag a little bit, because you just got a very big award.
Yes, so we were recognized by the International Solid Waste Association, and yes, such a thing exists.
In Singapore.
In Singapore, yes. In Singapore, during the World Congress that association hosts every year, and so they host an award competition for projects and campaigns in the communications area. And so they had heard about our Trash Lab project, and, we're encouraging people to submit, applications. So I put in ours and we received first place. So that was really cool to be recognized internationally for the work that we've been doing, and then just share our story so that other people can have their own Trash Lab-esque inspired projects, because it doesn't have to look like ours. Just having any sort of forum or space where people can really take the time to talk trash and think about their relationship with stuff is a Trash Lab. Yeah. That's what I tell people, Monica. I spend my days trash talking, literally.
Okay, so we're going to talk to Christina Berry. Christina, thank you for joining us. And I know that you had to join us a little late because you are right now at a conference and you're getting some information about your business, which you have a tea business. Tell us a little bit about your tea business. And, and you were very clear with me. You're like, I wouldn't say that I'm a sustainable person, but at the same time, you make sustainable choices in your business, which is very important. So tell us a little bit about your background as far as how you got to wanting to have a tea business, and also about those sustainable choices that you make and why it's important to you.
But my journey in the tea business, it really started last year. While the pandemic was going on, I found myself just really, eating and drinking things that wasn't very healthy for me. And I wanted a healthier life. And of course, during that time, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of fear. Because people we know are very sick or they're dying. And so I felt like turning to tea would, one, help me be healthier, and two, it'll give me an alternative to eating and drinking things that wasn't good for me. You know, tea is known to be, in many cases, something to relax you, release the stress. I'll turn to it. Well, the tea I was finding in the grocery stores, the tea bags, it wasn't very flavorful. So I started mixing the flavors together, and I kind of came up with something. And then I found the loose leaf teas, and that's when I started really getting creative with it. And I would add different flavors together. And I thought to myself, I was like, oh, I may be onto something. So from there, I really looked into, like, if this is something that I need, like, how can I get this to other consumers? And as Monica mentioned, I never really thought of my company as being sustainable. But the more I got into looking for vendors and suppliers, one of the things I realized, well, first off, most of our tea in the U.S. is imported. I would say about 90% of the tea in the U.S. is imported, mainly from China and India, Japan, and Kenya. And when you look at the labor practices in those countries, they're not the standards of the U.S. A lot of times there's a lot of labor exploitation, when you think of that. And also the way that they go about it in the tea business is typically handpicked. The supplier that I work with, the tea is grown at a high altitude, so it tends to be a better quality of tea. But what attracted me to that company is that not only is the tea at a natural, because it grows at a natural high altitude, it's going to be free from chemicals and pests. So none of that needs to be put on the tea to make it whatever. It's just naturally like that. And the second thing is that they really care about the people who are harvesting the tea in those countries. It's kind of like wine. The land is not just it's owned by some families, and the people that work the land, that's their main form of pay. It's a big economy in those countries. I was reading once where like a block of tea was trading like at $1,000 on up to like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like it's a major thing in some other countries. But to bring it back home as well, when I saw that, the other thing that hit me is my mom. She worked in a factory all of her life, and we're here in Mississippi. And she worked for that company for about 20 years. And they decided to move their operations to another country. Well, what they didn't have set up, they didn't have any major retirement plans, anything like 401k or anything like that. While her pay was good to take care of me and, our family, when you look at retirement and suddenly you're losing your job, you have nothing to turn to. And so a year later, like she suffered a stroke and, she still has some issues behind that. And so it became even more personal to me that if I'm going to work with a company and I'm going to get my tea from different countries, that they have to care about their people and they have to care about the practice of how it's being harvested. So from that aspect, when I started really looking at sustainability, I realized that there is a social justice element to it, that you do care about, people, how people are treated, that aspect. And then there's also, of course, conservation when you look at that. And when I think about tea, because I use the loose leaf, I'm always using it for composting. So when I'm done with it and dumping it out, I always put it like in my flower garden because I know there are still nutrients that's left in the leaves. And with that, it's still fertilizing it. So from that sustainable standpoint, it's being reused, it's putting more nutrients in the ground so that the plants that I have that's growing there, they can benefit from them. So that's kind of my long and short story of my journey into just being sustainable and my tea company.
And I think that's really important. That's one of the reasons why I wanted you to be on here because, you have a choice in dealing with whatever vendors that you're going to deal with. So it is important to be conscious about the people that you're working with. And especially I love your backstory about this because it does make it very personal for you. So what would you talk to entrepreneurs about when just thinking about the choices that they can make when they're, to be sustainable?
Yeah, I would say, there's always a choice. Because you can look at it in a number of different ways. Just last night when I was just reading and looking at the sustainability, I mean, so many people have so many different definitions for it, so many different elements that they move towards it. I mean, just by turning off lights at night from your business, I mean, you're making a choice that, hey, I'm going to conserve energy. So that's something small that I think anyone can do. We're finding now that a lot of packaging can be recycled. And my goal has been with my company to be 100 to use 100% recyclable plastic within the next 2 years. And the reason it's taken me so long is really just finding a good company to be able to package and label. The labeling company that I use is a local company. The plastic that I use, I don't have a lot of information on it, but I do know that it's strong enough that it can be reused over and over again. So one of the things that I was thinking about was offering my customers that, hey, when you get ready to buy your next bag of tea, spray in the packaging bag or refill it, and it's a certain percentage off. That way, it's being reused. It's not going in the garbage, and we're not sitting using plastic over and over again until I can find something that is biodegradable that will be good for my company.
You are speaking Sujata and Marissa's language right now. I just want you to know that. They both come from waste recycling, so they're loving what you're saying. So
awesome. Yeah, and I think one of the things too with businesses, a lot of times I feel like they're not really challenged, because when you think about, if they don't have a personal story related to it, or they're just not interested in it, typical businesses are thinking about bottom line. And if those things can show value to their company, I think their mindset is open to it. But I also think as consumers, we have a responsibility to who we choose to buy our products from. And I think that with the consumer is really where the power stands at, because yes, you have the business doing their thing, but as the everyday person who is going to be the one that's buying all this, buying whatever they're buying, they have a choice to say, hey, I'm going to look for products that I believe are sustainable, that's good for the environment, that I can recycle, or that I can use over and over again without having to go back to the store and constantly buy stuff. So I think that responsibility lays on the consumer as well as the business, and it's about finding that balance between the two and getting them talking.
Very good. And give us a little bit of information about your tea company. You haven't mentioned the name of your tea company. You must do that. Right, Marissa? Marissa's in marketing. She's like, why didn't you say your tea company name yet?
My company is named Sippsi. And as I mentioned, I started it last year. I had my first sales in November. So I'm approaching 1 year of sales coming up in a couple of weeks. Yay! Sippsi is also a play off of Mississippi. I'm in the South, and of course the South has a history of sweet tea, and also very nostalgic for me. Tea is something that I feel like is a connector. It's the second most consumed drink beverage in the world. So if you are interacting with someone from another country, it's likely that if you invite them over and offer them a cup of tea, that you're connecting with them right there, because most people in the world, they drink tea.
What is your website?
It's Sippsi, Sipply, goodtea.com. I'll put it in the chat as well.
Yeah, we'll put it in here as well. Okay, so okay. I wanted to ask kind of the group as we're kind of wrapping up things. What would you say is the most important thing to think about when you're choosing, and this just generally choosing a career? And many people will decide that they'll choose a career in sustainability, but then others won't decide that, but at the same time they have that passion. So how would you say what would you say would be one of the important factors to kids, especially when they're thinking about choosing a career? And that's for anybody.
I can start with this one. So you kind of said it in your what you just said there, but for me, whenever I talk with someone either going right into college or trying to figure out like what they want to do next, it's passion. At the end of the day, like when you get a little more well-versed into your career too, it's always passion what keeps you going. It's what prevents you from burnout. It's what makes you want to get up every day and continue fighting through adversity. So I have found that you can truly make a career out of anything you're passionate about. You will see the coolest companies doing the most unique things. And you would have no idea how they started or where it came from, but it's always the root of it's always passionate people. So I always tell people just to follow your gut, and eventually you'll find that career that aligns with your passion. And if not, create one. Like, I'm not saying it's easy. It's definitely not easy being an entrepreneur or doing something you're passionate about that might not make sense to the majority of people. But at the end of the day, if that's truly what you are passionate about, it will work out. So it's my advice.
Yeah, that's some great advice. And I resonate with that, and just wanted to expand a little bit to that. When you're young, whether it's high school and college, you also have a lot of flexibility in terms of internships and trying out different opportunities. So I think that can be a really great way for you to know yourself better and maybe figure out what you do really enjoy in a particular role or job or position. I know that certainly helped me a lot too, because I realized, wow, I really love like the human environmental interaction stuff, like not just the environment, just like I like that space where there's interaction between people and planet. And so those internships and job opportunities or shadowing or whatever it may be can really go a long way in informing for you, you know, what is it that sparks you?
Christina, if you had anything.
And I would add, yeah. I would give advice of just not to be afraid to pivot and not to be. I think sometimes when students enter careers or enter college or technical training, that they hear about it, but as you mentioned, they're not really getting a lot of internships. But if they begin in something and it's not necessarily what they feel passionate about or interested about, just not to be afraid to change. Like, I know people that I've gone to college with, and they're in the same career just based on their degree because of their comfort level, and they haven't just changed. So my background is in urban planning and real estate, and I've been doing it since 2004. I love it. I'm passionate about community, but I'm not one-dimensional. So when I said that, hey, I think I want to start a tea company, I'm going to figure it out. Like, either I do both or I let one of them go and I find a way to do something else. But I'm not going to limit myself to just one thing when I can do several things. And I think that's the other thing that I would share with students, is that not to be afraid to do 2 or 3 different things if that's where your interests are. You don't have to choose just one thing in life. You can always change and do something else. You can have a career in your 20s or 30s and change it for your 40s and however you like.
Very good. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us for this first career day. We have an education, community and education department, basically, and we wanted to be able to give them some information for children to be able to understand, that there are different paths that you can follow. And I think that you all gave such great examples of how, you're following different things, but it still incorporates sustainability as well. And just to be good stewards of the earth in whatever track that you're actually going down. So thank you so much for joining us. And Marissa and Sujata, if you could both tell us your websites as well for them to get more information about your respective businesses.
Yeah. So if you want to learn about my 40-hour work week job, you can look at carnivoremeatcompany.com. It's fun. Dogs, cats, everyone loves pets. But then if you want to learn more about my business, you can go to giveadaamventures.com or find Giveadaam on Instagram, because that's where I try to keep up with most.
And your spelling is different, so.
Yes, so it's not a profanity in the spelling. So it's Giveadaam, which also means woman in a couple languages, DAAM. So it was a beautiful mistake.
And then to find out more about the Trash Lab and some of the other really cool sustainability related projects that we have going here at the Dane County Department of Waste and Renewables, you can visit landfill.countyofdane.com. And we've got a projects tab, so you can learn about our Trash Lab project. Also our Sustainability Campus project is another really cool one that I'm working on. So more to hear on that in future, but we're also on Facebook and Instagram, so you can search Trash Lab on Instagram and find us there, and then Dane County Landfill on Facebook.
Really good pictures of the trash lab as well.
Yes.
If you get to Madison, Wisconsin, you want to check that out. And
Yeah.
Christina, thank you again also for taking the time out. I know it's kind of hard to try to find a place. I've been there before when you're trying to conduct yourself in a meeting or whatever. So thank you again. Very good. Thank you, ladies.